Move to our next session. Uh, it's a panel discussion where we are talking about digital transformation with CSA, trends, tech, and the talent that we need. I think after the entire 2 days of discussions, we know that now the mindsets and the skill sets will play a very major role. Let's dive deeper into understanding how CSA is accelerating digital transformation across pharma, the skills, roles, mindsets needed to thrive in a CSA driven environment. To lead this discussion, we are privileged to have with us Mr. Sridhar Balasubramanium, Head of Quality Parental at Dr. Reddy's. He will moderate the discussion. A global pharma leader with 25 years of experience driving quality as a competitive advantage, leveraging digital transformation, Industry 4.0, and cross functional excellence to deliver compliant, innovative, and patient focused outcomes across diverse markets. Welcome, Bala.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Uh, Joining him are three stalwart panelists. Let me start with Mr. A.R.M. Rao, President Aurobindo, bringing a decades of leadership experience in driving pharma transformation. Uh, he has around 32 plus years of experience and expertise in quality, regulatory, R&D, and manufacturing, having led 100 plus global inspections. And he has championed digitization, sustainability, and excellence in pharma operations.
Yeah, good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon, sir.
Sridhar. Good afternoon, Sridhar. Good afternoon, Vishal, right?
Good afternoon,
Vishal.
sir.
Thank
Rushali.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, Vishal. Yeah. So, thank you very much for inviting. Thank you for your introduction, Vishal. Thank you.
Uh, I also invite Mr. Sanjay Nandavadekar. He is the Vice President and Head of IT at Inventia Healthcare, a strong vision for IT driven quality and innovation. Uh, a seasoned pharma IT leader with 20 plus years of expertise driving Industry 4.0 adoption, digital transformation, and enterprise scale automation to deliver compliance, efficiency, and business impact. Welcome, Sanjay.
Thank you, Rishali. Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon. Good
And
afternoon, Mr. Rao.
yeah. Lastly, let me invite Mr. Chetananand Pathak, Senior Director of Corporate Quality at MCure, a leader shaping quality strategy and for the future. He is a veteran with 28 plus years of experience, global regulatory expertise, driving compliance, excellence, and digital transformation and quality first culture. Together, they will uncover what's working, what's not, and what's next in making for CSA, the backbone of pharma's digital journey. Welcome, Chetananand.
Thank you, Rishali.
And there's a power pack panel. Over to you, Sridhar, to take it forward.
Thank you so much, Vrishali, and I'm delighted to be a part of this discussion, and I hope I do a good job in moderating the session. I have been told that we have limited time, but the topics that we are talking about are highly critical to the industry. There is a changing face of the regulations. There is a way that we have been used to doing things in the pharma industry, and that also needs to kind of continuously improve. So I'm pleased to be part of this panel with esteemed guest Dr. Rao, Mr. Sanjay, and Mr. Chetan. So thank you for being here as well. So I think the whole context of computer system assurance has been going around, for a few months now, and it's in the industry books. People are trying to find out what is the way that we need to understand it, to be able to decipher what it means, and how do we take this further within the way that we operate. As increasingly companies are becoming more digitalized in nature, we have been, at least in the Indian industry, we have seen a huge amount of digitization across companies. I mean, I've been fortunate to be part of Dr. Reddy's journey from 2007 as we started our digitization process, and then also that have done a lot of work in Novartis and Biocon in this journey. But I think the way that we are now required to adapt to this changing facets of CSA is where the challenges lie for the industry. So I wouldn't waste more time, but I would like to hear from experts how do they see this change and what is it that the your own experiences are being used. How do you deploy this in the way that we understand it? So I think the first set of questions would be related to CSA and digital transformation. So I'm posing this question to Dr. Rao. Dr. Rao, I think you have seen multiple regulatory inspections in your career over 35 years now, and led a lot of quality transformations in the organization that you have worked in at huge scales. Aurobindo is not a small organization, right? So you have huge scale. But from your experience, how does CSA actually, the purpose was to see how we can accelerate your digital transformation journeys. So how do you think that this is impacting pharma, and where do you think are companies struggling to align, right? So where do you think is that challenge? I hope it was clear to you.
Yeah. So I think, as you rightly said, Sanjay, there is a lot of transformation to digital is happening in the industry. So one of the challenge I would say, other than the CSA, is the technology, right? The first is the technology challenge. IT infrastructure is a challenge, right? But keeping those aside, so the challenge is the huge, complex, I would say, computer system validations we are doing traditionally is a big challenge, because we develop pages and pages, traditionally, and based on some checklist, or say based on a standard protocols, right? Without understanding what is the criticality, right, in this. So that's a very traditional way of doing. I think, uh, you know, it's okay when we are doing, maybe one limbs in a small lab or something like. Now people are looking at a big platforms of digitalization across the end-to-end processes. See, when you want to do that, if you keep, such a big CSV programs, right? Without, evaluating really what is required, right, is becoming one of the bottleneck for many of the organization who are wanted to implement the digitalization, which is taking a longer period, right?
Correct.
So, and also it is not really challenging or testing what is required, right, which impacts the real patient safety or a data integrity, or the integrity of the data, etc., etc. So if you want to get into a lot of digitalization, in addition to the other challenges, right, which is culture change, transformation change, there are a lot of things are required. People to understand, training the people. In addition to the most important is understanding the actual requirement of a validation or a testing or a challenge, whatever you call, right? What is requirement? So there is a definitely a requirement to people to understand, what is the concept of CSA, right? So for example, if you few decades back in the environment of quality, there is a quality control, right? So which the batches are really evaluated the quality based on the testing, right? So, and gradually it came to from testing to assurance. I think that's the same transformation is going on in the computer systems also. From, CSV is considered as a testing and challenge. Now we have to transform that in assurance, right? One of the critical factor when you get into assurance is understanding the criticality. Like we call in the, GMP, CPP, CQA, similar to that, you need to identify what is really is impacting my activities or my application which I'm going to do, transform from the manual to the this. So this is a major thing which we require. Maybe it is a lot of elaboration. I think you in your previous presentation you might have covered most of the things. So without this, what is happening currently is the auditees are facing a lot of challenge when a real, computer system, validation understanding person come in, start reviewing because of huge documentation. One is, of course, as a human being, we don't know what we have validated because there's huge documentation. So, and the auditor also doesn't have time, right? He will only take, he knows what is the critical, right? He'll pick up the critical. Then in this so much testing we are doing, we miss the, actual testing, what we need to do, right? For example, a lot of people miss, the test, and one of the testing you need to do is the configuration, what you're doing, right? Once you complete the IQ, OK, whatever it is, the configuration, what you're doing in the testing is the very critical parameters. That is going to drive the, ongoing, right? So that's a lot of people miss. And then he picks up that, oh, you configure like this, where is the challenge of this, right? So the most important thing is that's one of the problem they are facing, our existing CSV guys, because not lack of risk assessment, right? I know, the people call as a differently high level risk assessment, and then go to the decide the system which is required, what level of what test, what level of validation is required. So once you get into that culture, it's very easy to logically response or face the audit. Right now I think that's missing. Now the second challenge we are facing is, once you validate and you forget about the system, people start using it, right? And we have a traditional concept of periodic maintenance, right? After 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, based on the organization, okay, we will again just run a sample and then see that. So, and sometimes because of various regions of the bugs, or users not properly qualified, right? When auditor comes, he will find some of the parameters are not working or not really challenged. So the CSA will take care of the, if you get into a framework of CSA, obviously you understand what is the critical parameters which is impacting the whole system, and also the the application, when I say application, the activity, and also there you get into an assurance mode. That means you assure that instead of periodic maintenance, you get into some of the continuous improvement programs, or you will always assure the system is working in a validated state. I think if you get into these thing, I think it's very easy to handle the audits, and they logically also, scientifically, logically, you can easily explain the auditors. I think that's what my take. Thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
Wonderful. I especially liked your analogy of QC to QA, quality control to quality assurance, and in parallel of CSV to CSA. I think that shift in mindset is very critical in the way that we understand it and how we deploy computer systems, digital systems within organizations. But through this, I would like to steer this question to Sanjay. Sanjay, from an IT lens, do you see this validation, because it's a huge, humongous activity that we do, right? Do you see this validation as a speed breaker, or as an enabler in bringing digital projects or digital implementation?
Okay. I think this is the most common question you could hear in most of the sessions, because the gamut of validation, what we do, what we perform, taking on the screenshot, validating on the screenshot, taking signatures. If somebody is missing on the signature, go back, change the document, take once again the signature. If you are missing on a screenshot, then again you have to take the screenshot, take the signatures. With that lenses, is absolutely looks like a burden. But we need to understand we are in a pharmaceutical world, and if we can produce a drug without doing a quality check, then we can do a system implementation without validation, right? That's the way I can think about it. Perfect. So validation is absolutely enabler, because then, as Mr. Rao mentioned, that if you have a validated system, then you need not have to worry about the stability of the system. Many time in other parallel industries who are not that regulated, we have seen that application get crashed, banking application get crashed. Then a lot of my peers, they said that we don't have stability on the application, and then you have to do a lot of re-engineering, and then you are spending almost equal or more than that in fixing the bugs and everything, right? Then once again,
Hmm.
you have to run the applications. With that perspective, I believe validation would become an enabler for the pharmaceutical industry. Of course, the volume is absolutely bigger, and that is where the CSA comes and plays a major role. Dr. Rao has uh, probably covered a lot of what I wanted to talk about, because from quality control to quality assurance, the gradual and the systematic move from control to assurance, the same thing which is happening in validation space as well, right? Unfortunately, this has come little late. It should have come little early. Then the penetration would have happened much easier. But nonetheless, I think this is coming at the right time. With CSA, I think we could probably establish a time saving or a project saving, time saving of nearly about 30-40% for sure. Because then you are largely talking about the framework, you are largely talking about the assurance, and probably you'll be looking at low hanging areas where the quality of the testing can be eliminated, not eliminated, but can be reduced or optimized. Optimized is the better word, right? For
Right.
example, if you want to look at the dashboards, probably you would be optimizing your testing, but you are looking at the batch release record, then probably you have to stringent your testing. So if you can create that assurance framework and apply the assurance framework for all the GXP application, that will bring a lot of agility and speed of operation of
Sure.
implementing software. So I think that is my take on this.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sanjay. But as even Dr. Rao was saying, and you're saying, there is an element that you could gain advantage by implementing the CSA, uh, as long as we are able to identify what those particular risks are and how do we ensure that we are taking care of those risks in our implementation process or in our validation process. But coming to regulations or regulators, right? Although the regulation for CSA is there, adoption by the industry is still very slow. And many of the inspectors that come to our facilities, right, also have this challenge in understanding your approach, right? So we have been used to so much of this way that we have implemented CSV, and now suddenly you're talking about CSA. So the question to Chetan is, from a quality perspective, what is the one single regulatory expectation teams often misinterpret, right, when it comes to adapting CSA? So what's the difference, right? And how do we manage that, right?
Thank you, Sridhar. I think a lot of things are explained by Mr. Rao and Sanjay. But what people misinterpret, first, let me come to the guidance, draft guidance published on CSA. If you see, it mentions the scope for medical devices.
Yeah.
So the obviously someone like me in pharma who is not a medical device experienced, we might say that this is not applicable for me, but
Right.
that will be a misinterpretation, because further it says it applies to production and quality related aspects software. So even if the guidance has first draft has come for medical devices, every good system, every CSV or CSA related systems are going to be followed by the whole pharma, biological, everyone. And that is going to come because what is planned by FDA is the general principles of software validations will get modified with this, so it will be applicable for everyone. So that one should understand that it will apply to the pharma, not related to only medical devices. Second possible misinterpretation, if somebody reads this draft guidance, the basic purpose is definitely to reduce the documentation. The
Sure.
traditional approach of CSV was huge documentation, right from the user requirement specification, IQ, OQ, PQ, test scripts, testing of the challenges, validation, too many screenshots attached, thousands of pages. So CSA will definitely give opportunity to reduce that document burden. But the misinterpretation might be that it doesn't require document. So that cannot happen. A pharma cannot have any possibility of zero documentation in any sense. So although that definitely reduces document burden, but it still requires proper documentation, proper procedures. What it talks is an approach.
Right.
Another uh, uh, approach might be somebody might think that it's a draft guidance, it has not been made effective by now.
Yeah.
But so somebody is likely to wait that let it become effective, then we'll see. But the thing is that it's an approach given, a risk-based approach. They also talk about critical thinking. And for pharma, risk-based approach is not something new. They talk about
Yes.
patient risk. That is not something new to us. So when they are talking about an approach, why to wait? Why not slowly start adopting so that when it becomes effective, we find it easy for implementation. So that is another aspect. Again, somebody might feel that whether it is a somebody might see that one more guideline, so one more burden. So it's not a burden because they are going to only modify the previous general software validation guidelines, although they have given a separate draft. But if you go into details, we will realize that one portion of the software validation will be amended with this approach. And this approach is to reduce burden, not to increase burden. That someone should understand.
Wonderful, wonderful. Great insights, Chetan. Thank you so much. Right. But I think, over the years, the way that we have adapted technology to our pharma industry, right, and the acceptance of the usage of digital platforms within our own, ways of working has kind of deeply ingrained within us, right? So I think all the organizations that I have worked for in the recent past have adopted digital technologies, so to speak. Now there is a sudden shift, right? Now what's the sudden shift thanks to AI, Gen AI, and all the different kind of technological improvements that we have seen. There was also a time when, from a quality perspective, many times the quality persons would say, "Oh, I cannot have an on-premise software. I mean, I should always have an on-premise software, and I cannot have it cloud-based. Data, security, and all these concerns that were there." I think, but slowly the shift is also happening with the advent of the industry 4.0, the kind of AIs and IoTs and things like that. So I'm trying to get a feeling and understanding from you, Sanjay, where when we talk about AI, IoTs, RPAs, and different and cloud-based systems to be adapted, do you think that compliance is falling behind? Do you think that um, we are trying to ensure the user convenience and acceptance, right, of all these techniques while keeping the validation intact? So it's kind of a double-edged sword when you want to move ahead, but you're held back by something which is written in your processes or the way that you have handled it today. Are we becoming more rigid or are we needing to become more flexible?
So Sridhar, it is not double-edged, but it is multi-edged sword, to be safe.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Okay.
As there is a heavy push on you from management saying that where are we? Because every corner discussion will ask you where are we on in terms of our AI journey, right? And this
Yeah,
is not
yeah,
something naive. This is very very general, and it's a fair ask because world is moving so fast, and why not pharmaceutical industry?
sure.
But look at the travel what we had. We started with on-premises software largely, and then moved from on-premises slowly to virtualization, from virtualization to cloud, and then we brought in RPAs, and we work with RPAs, and now there are agents who are working on, right. So a lot of things are happening in pharmaceutical world. Validation is still there, and it has to be there. And my friend Chetan has mentioned that you cannot imagine pharmaceutical without paper-based validation, or if not paper-based validation, at least some validations, whether it is in paper in or digital, it has to be there because we deal with
Yeah,
human life. What has changed over a period of time, I think, is the approach. Even agency understand that we have to keep a pace with the technology changes, and pharmaceutical companies cannot be left behind for not having advantage of this kind of technologies. However, we have to strike a balance. We cannot go and go for a newer version of the technology always. So pharmaceutical would always go for N-1, N-2 of the
sure.
technology, and they would like to understand how the technology is establishing, whether there are downside of the technology, whether there are any risk which is associated with the technology, any inherent bugs which are associated with technology, and then we'll probably adopt it. over a period of time, because we have learned from what we have done over a decade or so, we have optimized our processes as well. In terms of validation, we have optimized our processes. We try to reuse what we have already created. And the classical example would be putting all your validations on digital platform, right? So you need to create the RTM, and traditionally you have to go to each and every use case, URS point, FRS point, use case, and then you create that RTM. Now that has been automated altogether. So that has reduced your time for validation, right? You have a lot of platforms now which brings a lot of ease for the validation documentation. Screen taking, shots taking is much easier now with this application. So all in all, I think overall the industry has evolved. As a pharmaceutical, as you rightly mentioned, RP and other technology implementation. Initially, we were hesitant to go for cloud, to go for RPA, but now I think this is bread and butter for all of us. We have a lot of RPAs sitting in core areas like manufacturing and quality as well. But we have made sure that these all tools which we have implemented are validated and they are proven to the purpose. So the exercise what we have done over a period of time has given us a fruit as of now. And from validation standpoint, from moving from traditional validation to digital validation, that is also given us a age to at least pace up with the changing technology. Just to sum up, I think technology is going to change. There is no stopper for that. Pharmaceutical will be little behind adopting the newer technology, but we'll adopt the technology with confidence and serve our purpose.
Wonderful. So, thank you, Sanjay. But also the regulators are watching. Dr. Rao, in your opinion, how do you think can companies introduce automation or AI without contravening compliance or tripping over compliance? How is there any insights that you could provide as to how we would like to ensure that there is compliance, but also be able to adopt those technologies?
So there are two, different things. One is automation, second is AI, right? So as I said earlier, anything what you do in automation, right? You need to, this is a transformation from a manual process, which is always not a real time, always, right? And going to an automation is bringing it to a real time, right? So we need to really understand the impact before we do and understand the risks before we get into any automation. So, and what is happening typically in industry is, right, either from management or users, it comes, oh, now I have to automate my batch record. And that's all we listen, right? And then we call a couple of vendors and say, okay, you implement those things. So we don't look at what is the backup system, right? What happens when I start getting the real-time data? Is it data what we are getting through the, for example, e-batch record or anything? Is it, integral, right? If my PLC doesn't have the controls and getting the data to the e-batch record has no meaning,
Absolutely.
right? So I think one of the missing is this, right? People are not really looking at, what is the impact and is it this application when I bring, right? What will happen? So then there is no approach and roadmap. That's number one. Now coming to the AI is not a solution, which removes, totally your prediction and or your process or review. AI still has, a in pharma, what I would call as accuracy levels. It's still missing, right? Still missing, right? So, you think AI will do, okay. Now, what is a pharma when compared to other industries, right? Pharma as, I think Sanjay, right? Sanjay said pharma is, a little, backward in implementing that because pharma has a lot of controls, a lot of regulations, right? So anything a failure after implementation is a risk.
Right.
So that risk taking is is not much in pharma when compared to other industries because the risk is manageable. Your risk cannot be manageable. You are getting into trouble, you are finished, right? So that is the one. We are very slow in adopting the technologies, right? So even the vendors who are coming up, they are also not prepared well to mitigate the risks, right?
Sure.
Mitigate the risk once we start implementing. So coming back to the AI, the same problem. See, AI is not a solution, right? So once you put AI, when you validate, what is the accuracy level you are going to get, and what is the consistency you're going to get it,
Sure.
right? What is consistency you're going to get is a challenge right now. So a lot of vendors now come and say, "Oh, I have an AI to your review process is gone," right? Okay, so it replaces your review process. You need not to review. You need not to enter the data.
Sure.
But what is the consistency? There are a lot of variables, right? A lot of variables which AI can affect, right? For example, somebody want to transmit a data from PDF through AI to data fields in a software, right? And okay, you validate it, and suddenly the PDF came was a little faded.
Hmm.
Very practical, right? Then
Right.
AI doesn't be accurate there because it doesn't recognize some of the fields which is there in the faded PDA form or a scanned copy. So, we have to really, if you want to implement AI, we have to very strong validation, very strong risk assessment to understand what is the level of accuracy which we are going to work. If I have,
Sure.
80%, 70%, and you should be very clear and define, okay, when I'm using this tool for AI tool, when I'm doing for, let's say, review process, right, I'll get 80 fields. I'm okay. 20 fields, I may not get it, right? I need to go to that. If that is clear, I think regulators have no objection or a compliance issue. So that is what we call as a tipping of compliance, right? You assume
Understood.
that I validated and it give 100% results, and without knowing you, you lose at least 20%.
Sure.
That's what practically
Absolutely.
I've seen, right?
Sridhar, if I
Absolutely.
can add a point here.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, I think we need to have a very well articulated AI strategy, right? Which areas we would like to implement AI.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, AI would be serving you in almost every area. For example, if you want to use AI in early discovery, I think that's a fantastic field to use because
Hmm.
then you'll be able to find out which are the components which are aligning with my KSM, or is there any solubility component which can give me a prediction about how much of solubility I can achieve by using this particular component or compound.
Sure.
That's a beautiful area to implement a solution from AI side. Another area in regulatory, you have multiple changes which are happening all across the regulations, right? You have changes happening all across the market. Can we use AI and bring all these changes and summarize it for the users?
Hmm.
In this example, because we implemented these solutions in earlier
Understood.
organization, and this has given a beautiful
Sure,
outcome.
sure.
So, in summary, I believe, barring maybe manufacturing or quality, where you have highest risk of implementing something as agile as AI, there are ultimately a few other areas where you can probably do a pilot and implement AIs.
Super. Super.
Yeah.
And I think the adoption of AI will be there. And as Dr. Rao was saying, that you can be only so much accurate, right? It does not take away the need for, or does not take away the human factor, the knowledge, the skill sets, the ability for us to interpret what is there and see, filter out what is right and what is wrong, right? So I
Absolutely.
recently used a tool which helps me in my investigations, AI-based tool that helps me in my investigations. And I put one of my old reports through that tool, and it gave me 20 other opportunities for evaluation. But I found that out of those 20, maybe 10 or 15 were not even relevant to what we were talking about, right? So that judgment will definitely stay with people with technical skill sets. But AI does give a different perspective. There were 4 or 5 things that the AI told me to look at, right, which I had not thought of, right? So it was interesting to kind of use that kind of tool, but it cannot replace, right, what we would do, and the level of its accuracy will always become a question, right? So in this context, and typically when our industry has always been largely SOP driven, right, and we say that we need to follow procedures and all that, this new technologies is going to probably have an impact on that. So therefore, the question now to Chetan is, what is your biggest SOP or process change that you may need, right, in order to make new technologies stick, right? Because we are a very closed kind of unit as far as pharma operations are concerned.
I think it's an approach change rather than a process change, and
Sure.
one need to adapt. Now, how it will stick? I think one thing we should keep in mind is nothing, no magic can happen within few days. Sufficient time should be given to adapt. Before that, understand. It cannot happen that today company management says we want to bring AI, say, for investigations, and next 3 months we must implement. That cannot
Yeah,
happen
that
because
cannot.
that is totally a new uh, era for us. Transition is happening, which needs to be given adequate time till the point where we say it has stuck. It's a long time, it's not a short time, and that much time should be given. I have seen in the past many organizations when we started initially 15 years back implementing, say, QMS
Mm,
softwares,
correct.
uh, moving from paper-based change control deviation system to electronic systems. I saw multiple organizations very hurriedly implemented some product, and in couple of years they scrapped.
Yeah,
Why? Because users didn't find it convenient, and very common reason came out: users did not find it convenient. I have personally also witnessed when we sat with the vendor OEM to create a QMS software in line with my paper, closely matching with my paper system. People easily adopted, and then slowly we modified it to our requirements. So
sure.
the prime is user convenience. If you dump some product from top and ask users to follow, and they will find reasons for why not to follow.
Correct.
So user convenience is at the top. If user find it convenient, is a success. So, but to find users to find it convenient to adapt it, sufficient time needs to be given. If that
Sure.
happens, well, involving users in these developments is the ideal way. And nowadays, everyone is trying to call users. A lot of these vendors on automations, they call users, make them sit in a room and brainstorm and understand what is current requirement, and then they develop. So that's a
Correct.
good leadership theory is being followed by big vendors. Another aspect is whatever you bring, there are two aspects, and in Indian scenario it happens. There are Indian vendors, local vendors, who also talk the same thing that they have developed something. There are known big brands in the global market which have developed. So one might think that let's bring a global branded product, any automation, AI, whatever, so that it's a known brand globally. So even regulators know such names, big names. So regulators during inspection, they are comfortable, is one thought. But if you see the cost and other aspects, even if you want a small change or modification, it turns out a big URS and qualification and a lot
Yeah.
of cost factors. That is another. But if you sit with a local vendor, he may make a user convenient, sitting with user something, but there may be troubleshooting issues, whether he is technically expert enough to resolve the problems coming ahead, maybe the vendor, whether vendor understands regulatory expectations. So there is always uh, two end, I mean, advantages, disadvantages of everything. So one must should find what is right, and I think that is what is the role of leaders in the organization, to guide it properly, not to force high speed of implementation, let users adapt so that they, at one point, it is stuck in our system. So
Absolutely.
that's the key, I think, I would like to say.
Wonderful.
And
Wonderful.
it's,
Thank you, Chetan.
sorry,
Yeah.
one is
Mhm.
process. It's a
Yeah.
not a process change, it's a approach change. And SOP,
Approach. Yeah.
pharma cannot work with SOP. So
Yeah.
SOPs will be there. We should not and we will not work without SOP. So remains to
I
be
think
part
this,
and parcel
I
of our.
think Chetan, it resonates with also what Chetan and Dr. Rao were saying in terms of the way that we think about, adopting CSA or AI or new technologies, right? It's an approach, it's a strategic way of looking at it rather than making ourselves bound by procedures or SOPs and say, I cannot do this versus I can do this, right? It's about how do we adapt to that. But I think the whole piece about adaptation, right, goes to the next level in terms of the culture, the skill sets, right, the skills and roles and things that we were never even aware of, right? So I remember in one talk, Steve Jobs said that I'm creating something for you which you don't even know that you need it, right? And then he created the iPhone, right? We didn't have iPhones, right, till 2006, 2007, but we didn't know that we needed this. And today, that technology, right, of what Apple brought in is just all over the place, right? We can't live without it, right? So we did not even know that these things we need it, and now we can't do without it. So, and as we have new generations coming in, right, and their adaptability to be able to manage digital ways of working, as opposed to some of the ways that we started our careers with, is completely different. So, from a culture control mindset, right, Chetan, for you, you build cross-functional teams. You build teams with different age groups across geographies and different mindsets and different cultures. The adaptation in India versus other geographies. So a lot of things that are very different in the way that you look at it today from maybe what you did 5 years ago. So how does this entire thing become? How do these aspects become very critical in the new scenarios of CSAs or validations?
I think first let us see about skill sets.
Hmm.
And the CSA guidance talks about something new, that is critical thinking. Now, if
Sure.
you ask pharma shop floors what is critical thinking, they may not be that much aware of what is critical thinking. So there, I think teams, down the line teams need support what is critical thinking and how to do it. Another is a risk-based approach, which is a skill I think fairly developed in pharma by now to understand what is risk-based approach. Here, will always talk about patient risk. Since I am from API background, API is never consumed by patients, so we always talk about product quality. So product quality or patient risk is the key to understand the risk is one skill set required. Another is critical thinking. I think if that is new for the down the line teams, we may need to develop certain workshops to understand what is critical thinking and how to do it. But that is a new something new. This guidance is talking about critical thinking. Another aspect is the mindset, but before that, skills need to be developed, and nobody is born with such skills. Neither these skills are taught in most of our education systems of pharma. Now, I can give one example. We talk about data integrity in last many years, 2 decades almost, we are talking about data integrity. But if we ask whether our pharmacy education has got data integrity aspects in their syllabus? The answer is still no. So, are the institutes also aligned with teaching these things? Is also a question. It's very far behind our education system. I should not blame, but whenever I go for guest lectures, I always try to give this to vice chancellors, principals. So please ensure, because when a fresh graduate enters in the pharma industry, and if he is not aware about, say, for example, data integrity approaches, he is likely to face those issues. He is likely to be facing those problems, and everyone knows how important it is. So, although industry has gone ahead with such skill sets, but the people coming from behind, the new freshers from institutes are not aligned with what's coming ahead. It's a big gap, and we as leaders should, whenever we get opportunity to talk colleges, give guest lectures, we, at least I ensure that I give that message what's coming. 15 years back, I remember when I asked one of the institute whether your students are aware what is validation for, say, MSc chemistry graduates, microbiology graduates coming to industry. They don't know what is validation.
True.
It's very far. So the skill set starts from our education system, which is lacking. But yes, in our pharma, we always take our HR department's help, L&D's help to create workshops. And here it is, critical thinking is something new, which is needed. Another aspect is mindset. Uh, yes, mindset is, what comes immediately to mind is a risk-based approach when we say there is a practice, and a typical risk-based approach followed is RPN numbering. Give the RPN high risk, low risk, moderate risk. Now, there is a subjectivity. If I don't want to do much work, I would calculate RPN to such that it will come low so that I don't need to do much work.
Correct.
And that's a mindset. And this subject, I know that like a couple of years back, a draft is already published by ICHQ 9, the QRM guidance, which now talks about removing that subjectivity, which is good. But it requires a mindset that if there is a risk, there is a risk. I should not try to avoid that burden by calculating a risk as low. That needs a mindset. Critical thinking also needs a certain mindset. One more new word is used in CSA guidance: unscripted testing, no script. The traditional CSV approach used to have test scripts. Now they say unscripted means doing certain challenges as per our brainstorming, critical thinking. That also needs a mindset to don't try to avoid some burden. Don't try to misinterpret that it asks for reduced documentation. So we do reduce it to so much extent that there will be a question on the document. So that needs a good mindset, I think. That's
Very good.
my take
Thank
on
you.
it.
Thank you very much, Chetan. And I would probably just request Dr. Rao to tell us what would be the advice to our quality leaders in the industry to build future ready teams, right? We don't know what's the future, but how do we make them ready for something that we don't know what's going
Uh, I would say let us strengthen your continuous improvement programs,
to be?
right? So keep it continuously oversight and keep an eye on regulate, new technologies and their adaptability, right? And changing regulatory standards, right? And best industry practices, right? So,
Mhm.
lastly, there is no option. World is going through what digitalization,
Correct.
reducing
Correct.
manpower, right? And you have no option to prepare and put this as a part of your continuous improvement program. Chetan said it could maybe change of mindset in advance, change of improving of skill set in advance, right? We know our constraints, like like he said, our education system or our people coming in, they may not have this. So in your framework of the quality or any leader, right, framework, you need to incorporate these things, right? I will improve the skill set, I'll improve their mindset, so that from traditional manual, or in the colleges what they're doing, manual notebooks, you will maybe know more when you enter inside, right? The day will come, right, you will know more paper,
Sure.
right? So which is not will not happen obviously in the colleges or institutes, right? So
Yeah.
these preparation should be proactively started, right? So these are all part of when you make a good program of continuous improvement, these will become part of all those things. I think that's we have to make it strong, right?
Thank you
So
very
many
much.
of the organizations become stagnant because they don't
Sure.
have a continuous improvement program framed properly,
Sure.
right? I think
Absolutely.
that's
So it's
my
again
this thing.
It's again about strategy, right? It's again about strategy to change strategy, right? And that's again key critical input. Sanjay, how quality and IT has probably always been at loggerheads in our industry, right? But how can we collaborate better, right? What are your thoughts around that we are not doing validation or compliance or assurance in two different worlds or two different thought processes, right? So how do we amalgamate this together? Any thoughts from your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have real world experiences of having two
I'm
streams
sure.
working differently, like
I'm
IT
sure.
working differently, and quality would be working differently. And coming back to the recent experience of having a joint committee of IT and quality and other important departments, and bringing the strategy for building software vertical which will be implemented in certain verticals like manufacturing and quality and R&D, right? I think that's a transition which has happened. Couple of pointers what Chetan also mentioned and Mr. Rao also mentioned. Agility is absolutely important for today's generation to work with, and at the same time, cross learning is also very, very important. Now we have somebody who understands CSV in IT, and we have digital enablers or digital champions who are working in quality. So that's a cross learning which is happening in both the departments. Same goes with manufacturing, R&D, and other case systems or other departments as well. So, in nutshell, I think it is important not to create a vertical, but to create a bridge between all this department. Because end of the day, it is a single system which will be implemented in the organization, not the department. That's the way we have to look at it, and
Wonderful.
that could be my take. That it is not going to be an isolated system. It's the system for the organization, and all of us has to work together collaboratively.
Very good. Very insightful thoughts from all three of you. I think it's been great to have this conversation going, and it's going to be a continuous journey. But I would like to see if there are any questions from the audience. Maybe I think we can probably take two for the paucity of time. But I do welcome questions into the chat box so that we can try to work on the questions offline and get feedback to you guys. So if there are any specific questions, Rishali, I would like you to help me moderate that.
So there is a question from Nagesh Singh. How do you defend the use of unscripted exploratory testing to regulators or auditors?
Very good. Fantastic question.
Uh, do you want to take it, Sanjay? Or
Oh, yes, I can try to answer this question with best of my ability. See, unscripted testing is not new for us because in IT, there are a lot of unscripted testing which goes during the development, right? Many a times you'll see tons of testing which has been done by the developer and tons of testing which will be done by the IT quality, right? So this is already there. What the auditors would like to understand is how rugged is your framework in terms of risk management. If you were able to create that assurance, if you able to create that rugged framework which will assure the auditor that all the risk has been looked upon, and these are the risk mitigation plans, and this is how we are going to mitigate the risk. I think the unscripted testing can be very well justified to the auditors. Good parties, I think a lot of companies and a lot of product vendors are already working with the auditors, and they know for sure that what can be achieved by rugged systems which are implemented in all these areas. So CSA, I believe this is the major part which would be debated because it is not documented, it is not done. That is the traditional thinking and says in the pharmaceutical world. But at least CSA would probably change a paradigm shift, I believe, because a lot of things would be taken away from documentation to something like unscripted. But at the same time, end of the day, you have to prove that your software is able to comply with all the regulations, and it would able to justify all the validations which are needed otherwise for implementation.
yeah, exactly. I
Thank
think when we're talking about testing, it generally, there's a mindset that when it's CSA, there'll be reduced testing, but it's not about reduced testing. It's about testing what is required. I think
Absolutely.
that will be the difference that will come into play. Uh,
And Vishal, just to intervene, unscripted word looks to be a bit abnormal from regulatory point of view, but it's not abnormal in this guidance. They try to explain it as ad hoc testing, something additional. You traditionally were doing scripted, but there may be something beyond the script which you want to challenge to that software, whether it is able to do it. So basically, by the word unscripted testing, they want to mention that there is no limitation what is to be done. Do it beyond what is there in mind, and that's where the critical thinking, risk-based approaches are mentioned so that you don't restrict. It is dynamic. Do whatever challenges you want. There is no limit. That's the meaning of unscripted. The word looks to be abnormal from regulatory inspection point of view. How can they allow unscripted? But if
Yeah.
it is well explained in your procedure, because it is given by US FDA guidance only, this word. So there is
Yes,
no worry about this, I think.
exactly. Can
Sure.
we take like one more question? To align with CSA, the guidelines are available and the new technologies are available to reduce the human efforts. How to upskill the team with the same pace as AI tools are coming in?
So may I make an attempt
Sure,
here,
sure, sure,
right?
sure. Please go ahead.
It is also the experience of about how I learned to use my phone, right? And as I learned to use one part of the phone, there's something else already changed in the phone, right? In my next version of the phone, I have to learn something new. The AI tools today are are moving at a much faster pace than anyone can absorb, right? So it is quite intriguing that younger people have the adaptability to be able to learn faster than, let's say, generations like mine, or somebody younger. But what is important and key is that as we adapt to new technologies or what is hitting the platform, we also need to be aware that even if you may not learn everything yourself, right, you would need to understand how it functions, right? Whether you use it or don't use it, you need to understand how it works for you, right? And maybe you have some experts in your team who have the skill sets who will be able to do that, right? But if you are able to build that kind of sense in the way that you operate, and you say that, as let's say me as one of the quality leaders in the industry, say I need to adapt this because it's going to make the work and life easier, right, for us to be able to do the work that we do. At the same time, we are able to build better compliances. We are able to build into patient safety better, patient safety and product quality. It's going to be definitely an advantage for us to be able to adapt this, right? So that first sense to say that we want to go ahead with this is going to be very key and important. Once you have that, then you can always figure out how much you want to learn and how much you would let others learn and learn from them as to how much you don't know about, right? I think that's the way that we need to work this. Um, there is so many different things happening, and you go to any conference today. I was recently at the PDA conference. I was at the ISP conference last year. There's so many people who come and talk about different things, right? And you don't even know, right, that the world is changing so fast. And I was talking to one of the IT companies that develops many of these AI-based tools, etc. He says, if I have a proof of concept, and if the proof of concept I don't translate it within 6 months into implementable outcomes, and I'm not able to sell it within the next 12 months, then I have lost the initiative for it. So that is the pace at which the industry is moving. The IT and the AI platforms are moving. Our adaptation is slower, definitely, and we need to build those skill sets to be able to adapt to that faster.
Exactly. And end of the day, it is just like validation is not just about tools or templates. It's about people and how we are adapting with the newer tools that are coming in.
Correct, correct.
Thank you.
So,
And
if you
please
don't have,
summarize.
I
I was
don't think we have more time for any more questions, but I would request the audience to send the questions to Vishali and through this chat box, and we'll definitely try to come back to you with good responses. But I would like to thank Dr. Rao, Dr. Chetan, and Sanjay. It's been great having you in this session and panel, and I hope I did justice to all these different discussions. And thanks to Vishali and EBM team for pulling us together for this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks to all of you. Thanks, all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks to all. Thank you.